All right. Good morning slash afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being on time. I'm going to wait just maybe like 5 more minutes. I'm still waiting on about 7 or 8 people. Then I will take roll call and then we will start at around 12:05. Still waiting on about 7 more people, so wait a few more minutes and then we'll get started. Waiting on 5 more people. Just a few more people we're waiting for and then we'll get started. Maybe 3 more minutes. All right, it's now 12:05, so I will get started with roll call. I think maybe one of you is, I have one Korean name on here, which might be one of you, so I'll call that one last, just in case it's you or you have your English name instead, you can let me know. But I'll start from the top. You can just turn on your mic and then say here or present or something to let me know that you are alive. Alan Cortez.
Here.
Awesome. Brian Albertson. No Brian. Okay. Dupree's Magdalena. Okay. Gabrielle Mitchell or Gabriel Mitchell. Okay. Leon Goldman.
Here.
Awesome. Jason Moreland.
I'm here.
Awesome. Matthew Lutz. Okay, Matthew. Okay. Lone Penn.
Here.
Awesome. Oh, I'm gonna say this wrong. Kirshwan Jordan.
Here.
Okay. Samantha Burton.
Here.
Awesome. Talia Leslie Pillay.
Here.
Awesome. Trenton Goldman.
Here.
Awesome. Tom Pallet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And then the Korean name I have is Kim Yong-lan. Are any of you Kim Yong-lan? None of you are Kim Yong-lan. Oh, I have a chat. Let me read it. Okay, cool. Tina's here. Tina, are you Kim Yong-lan? Okay, awesome. Good. I have you on my meeting tomorrow, so then I will know that that is you. Good to know. Okay. Awesome. All right. Okay, we're gonna get started. Welcome to the C1 Low and Mid workshop for the fall term of 2025. My name is Terra Glab. I've been a teacher at the Mokdong branch for about a little over 2.5 years. So I'm here to impart some of my wisdom for all the times I have taught this class. I have taught many of these and many levels. I think it's a pretty fun class. It's if you taught the A2 term before, it's a lot less dry than that. There's more media cards you can put in. There's more topical discussions. A lot of more fun stuff you can do to play around with this class. If any of you are new and this is your first term, I think the C1, C2 term is a great term to start in. It's the first term that I started in as well. These are the first programs I learned as well. So I think you're starting at a good time. Okay, this is our agenda for today. A little overview of the levels, the course objectives, and then we'll go over the class structure briefly. The first part I won't do I will do pretty quickly because you have access to the segment guide. Hopefully your branch has access to that, somewhere you can log in and find it. If you don't know what that is or where to find it, you can email me afterwards and I can send you a link to all the segment guides for those levels. And then the SMART textbook will go over what your students see and what you will be teaching off of. So that includes reading, listening, and then just the methodology of how you should teach those. And then the third thing we'll do is the writing and speaking. This is off of the SMART textbook sometimes and also sometimes on the SMART textbook. So really, you will need to ask your FM or your head teacher or team leaders for how you guys implement speaking and writing. And then the homework, I'll go over just quickly the methodology for that, and then there will be a time for questions. If you have a question during, you can also just stop me, raise your hand, or just turn on your mic and ask if you think you're going to forget later. If not, you can just write it down and save it till the end. All right, so the levels are, for C1, we have high levels, which is Eagle, Elba, Albatross. Our mid levels are Bridge, Par, Birdie, and our low levels are EC4, Mega, Giga, and Terra. So I'll be going over the 2 blue ones today. Our course objectives for C1 is to develop academic language skills for topic-based expression. So I'll show you some of the pictures from the SMART textbook. Each lesson is usually one topic, and you'll be able to have reading and listening that are about the same topic. So the students will get really immersed in that and be able to learn about one thing the whole time. You will also be nurturing critical thinking of reading and listening passages, and then you'll be enhancing topical knowledge through terminology and knowledge maps. So they'll get exposed to new vocabulary words and stuff like that throughout the SMART textbook. All right, the class structure. So your first hour, you're obviously going to want to start with attendance. The first week, you will not have a vocab test. Week one, I think that's correct for most branches, but you should definitely just ask your head teachers just in case. But there should usually be no vocab test for the first class. So you can spend that time, usually at our branch, we spend that time doing an icebreaker, some sort of question for the students to get to know each other. So you'll have attendance and vocab test. Then you'll go over a page that I will show you called the Cover and Connect page. Then you'll have some Activate, which is the vocabulary, and then you'll want to start your reading a little bit before the second hour, and then you'll skim and summarize. You'll go over those pages. Then the second hour, you'll want to finish the reading and start the listening. And then in the third hour, that will be finishing the listening, and then you'll go over either writing or speaking. Writing is odd weeks, so that'll be week 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, and 11. And then speaking weeks will be the even ones, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Depending on if you guys have a week 14 or 13, that also applies. So make sure you ask your head teacher or FM for that as well. But that's the class structure. Again, you have access to this on the segment guide later for you to reference while you're prepping. All right, so this is usually the first thing that the students will see on their tablets. So it will have the lesson title, and then it will also have just a few different pictures that you can reference to get the students to kind of understand what the lesson is going to be about and see if they have any like pre-existing knowledge about these topics. So you can prep some warm-up questions to build interest and see what the students know already. Like some way I would probably introduce this is I would say, like the first picture, I would ask them what kind of job maybe that person has. Hopefully they would say teacher. Then I would say, do you think it's a nice teacher or a mean teacher? Then I would have them choose one of those. And then maybe I could open up to the class and ask them, does anyone have a really strict teacher? And see if they can raise their hand, tell a story from their life. Does anyone have a really nice teacher that they love? Does anyone have a favorite teacher? Does anyone want to be a teacher? So you're just trying to ask questions to build interest. But try not to go on like too many tangents because you have 13 or 14 weeks to get to know the students. So just a little bit every week is good enough because you want to make sure you finish all the components. Week 1, it is difficult to finish all the components because you're getting to know each other. Maybe you're new to the program as well, so you're still trying to figure out the methodology. And sometimes explaining things to the students takes a bit longer. So if you just let them know, like week 1, we may be touching on everything, but in future weeks, we will be completing all the components. That's a good reminder for the kids and for you just to not hold yourself to perfection for week 1, because it's kind of all over the place a little bit anyway. Even for me as like a veteran teacher, I guess. Also on these pages, you can prep other media cards if you think the pictures are kind of dull, or maybe you have like a cool, fun video in mind from like a Pixar movie or something like that. You can feel free to add that as a media card as well. And that will help students understand the meaning of the title, hopefully. Then the connect page, which is the next page that says unusual school rules in the orange box. This is where they will get to review some terms, different terms on the page that will connect back to the topic. You can prep more questions and media cards to help them further understand on this page. And then below, so the third picture that I put with the school rules in the circle, that's actually the bottom of the second page. This is another discussion question that they prep for you, where you can talk about maybe their school rules, or you can talk about the school rules at your CDI branch, and maybe why they have those rules as well. That's a good maybe backup for you as you're introducing your rules, to kind of show them that rules aren't just rules for the sake of rules. They're to keep students safe and to make sure they're having fun, stuff like that. So that might be a good segue for you to introduce your rules as well. Some extra advice for these pages. I would ask WH questions. Try to avoid close-ended questions like yes or no. Like, do you have a strict teacher? Yes. Okay, then that's the end of the conversation. I'll be like, tell me about, if you have a strict teacher, tell me about who they are, what they teach, why are they strict? So focus on WH questions like who, when, where, why, that kind of stuff. You also want to cold call on students to get everyone involved. That basically just means saying their names. Week 1 is also tough to understand names. So if you're not a big name person, I recommend maybe like having them make quick little name tags for about like 5 minutes at the beginning of class, and then they can have those on the front of their desk. Usually, I think when I was first teaching, it took me about 4 weeks to learn the students' names. Now I think it's a lot faster, but I definitely did use the name tags in the beginning. So if that would help you, that would also remind you to cold call them, because maybe you're looking at a name tag that you haven't looked at in a while. And you're like, oh, I forgot to call on Sally or something like that. So definitely cold call. You can also write the names down on a piece of paper and just have it on your podium as well. That's usually what I do, is write their names and then maybe like a fun fact I learned about them to include in the student comments for later. That's also important too. I don't know how all of your branches do student comments or if you do student comments at your branches at all, but it's good to be taking notes from the first time you meet those students, just so when student comments do roll around, you'll have something to say about a strength and a weakness or maybe some fun fact or something you could relate to with the student. So definitely ask your head teacher in FM about that if that is something that is part of your program. But yeah, cold call. Don't forget to cold call. Try not to just ask open-ended questions to the whole class. Say their name and then ask their question as well. That shows the students that you really care about what they have to say specifically. And then also show, don't tell. Try not to overly explain everything to the students. Instead of saying, do you guys know what unusual means? And they say no. And then you say, it means strange. You can maybe show a picture of unusual, and that's like a person with crazy hair or something. So try to show them things and not just tell them everything. Give them opportunities to learn as well. Okay, the next page that you guys will have is the activate page. This is where they are exposed to some new vocabulary that they will see in the reading and the listening. Listening has their own separate activate page. These are just the ones for reading. So for each of these, you can have students, sometimes we can use there's a function on the smart textbook where you can have them all circle. They should all have some sort of like pen device, not device, but like pen system. I don't know what to call it, but they have a square they can press that has a pen on it, and that means that they can then use their finger to draw on the tablets. Beware, they will be drawing while you're talking, so sometimes you can also use a different function that is the eyes on teacher function. It's just like a little eye or like a closed book, and you can press that as well to make sure they're not like getting too carried away drawing. But on this page, sometimes you can have them circle maybe words that they don't know, and you can walk around, see what was circled, and then you can elicit from the students as well. Does anyone know what unusual means? See how many hands you got. Ask someone what it means. Ask the next person for an example of that. Ask the next person if they can use that in a sentence. So try to get multiple students involved. You don't have to go over every single word. If you have time, obviously that's great. It will help them to understand the reading a little bit better. But if you're pressed for time and you only want to go over the ones that students don't know, that's also okay, to go over maybe 3 of these on the page. For EC4, Mega, and Giga, they also have sentences to fill in. So the mid-levels will not, but the low levels, you'll have maybe 3 words to put in a sentence, and those you can also do with students. Again, if you really press for time, 1 or 2 of those is better than 0, if you can't do all 3. So prep media cards for each of those as well. Maybe you can have them read it aloud to listen from the students, but you can also show a picture. For each media card, I usually have a picture for each one just to be more tailored to those visual learners that you may have in the class. And you can also encourage them to take notes in their workbooks. They have space a lot in their notebooks for just taking notes in general, but also they have access to all of these vocabulary words as well. They can jot down a little note next to that word to help them memorize it and study it for the next week's vocab test. Again, show, don't tell. Ask the students first, then show the media card. Like maybe you can say, do you know what unusual means? They say, no. Then you can say, okay, unusual name. Then you can give an example of an unusual name. And then maybe they can say, oh, it means weird. Or maybe if they still don't know, then you show the media card. So that can be like the last resort. Try to see if they can search in their brains and do some heavy lifting before you give them the answer. And yeah, don't spend too much time on this page again for the extra advice. Yeah, it's listening and reading, especially in the beginning. It's going to take a while to explain and maybe for you to just be able to get into the gist of like the methodology. So I recommend 3 of these, and then maybe as class goes on, maybe like in the last few weeks, you can go over all of them because they should be doing the reading a little bit more independently. After you've spent hopefully 7-8 weeks guiding them, then you can kind of transition into a bit more independent work. Of course, with answer justification afterwards, you always want to do that after. After the activate page, you will start your reading. This is a very, very important thing that you should hopefully memorize very quickly, and the students will also be memorizing it with you. It is called the Cheongdan Pizza. This is how they can break down a large reading passage to understand the most important parts. So how I would teach this to the students is I would just draw a triangle on my board, and then I would slice it into 4 slices. Some of your students may already know what this is, which is great. If they don't, then that's awesome that you're the first teacher to teach them. So what you will be doing, I also recommend adding this as a media card on the reading page. So you can also have them write it in their notes as well, and whatever lesson section it is. If they want to write it every week, that's really good practice. Sometimes in future weeks, I'll have a student volunteer come up and draw the pizza and write everything in, and we'll see if they missed anything. So that's a fun way to get students to take some responsibility in class as well. So how I teach this is, again, I usually draw a triangle and then I start with the topic. I don't fill in everything right away. I find it a bit easier to explain the topic, then find it, explain the thesis, then find it in the reading, and then same thing with main ideas and major details. So as you're finding the topic, things that we're looking for is what I tell the students specifically is repeated words. So you're looking in the title and the first paragraph, which I'll show you on the next page. And you're looking for repeated words, any words that you see many times. If they don't know the word repeated, you can tell them that as well. Then when you're looking for the thesis, you will be looking for the author's opinion, but it's not always an opinion. So I would maybe give more information when you're explaining the thesis, like author's opinion, or what the author is trying to prove, or maybe what the author is trying to teach them as well. Because if they don't see any opinion words, they might get lost and not be able to find the thesis because there's technically no opinion, because that may be a fact that the author is trying to teach. How to find that, that's always in the first paragraph as well, and it will include the topic word. You can also check for signal words. Usually we print out a page of transition words at our branch, and we give them to the students day one to familiarize themselves with signal words that they may see, not only in the reading, but also in the listening. Excuse me. And then they can also use those transition words in their essay writing as well, and in their speaking. On the Smart Textbook, there is a button that you can press that shows them a few signal words as well. If you don't have any printouts, you can go over a few of those just to familiarize yourself and them with them. Then main ideas after that, you are looking for anything that is supporting the thesis statement. So you can ask WH questions about the thesis statement, like who, what, when, where, why, and how. I also tell them that this is going to be kind of like the umbrella that they're talking about. So say the thesis statement is that there are many different sports. Okay, then there's going to be probably a sport that then becomes that umbrella. That is the main idea. Which first sport are they talking about? Maybe it's soccer. Then under that umbrella, there will be the next part, which is the major details. Those are supporting the main idea. They can also ask WH questions about those as well. And again, I'll show you more of that on the second page as well. So this is what the reading will look like. So again, for the topic, you are skimming, which means you're just looking. You're not reading everything because there's no time. You are reading to try to skim for the first, skim in the title in the first paragraph, and you're boxing any repeated words. So you're writing those in a box. So if you're looking at the first paragraph, this is for the first lesson. And the unusual school rules. So you see in the first paragraph, the words school and rules repeated or seen many times. And then you would box those on your tablet. And then you would also have the students open to the reading in their book and be annotating as well. They should always be writing anything that you write. They should always be writing as well. So once you find the topic, then you can move on to the thesis. If there are several different topics that are possible, like some students may just really want to participate. So they could say, this isn't really a good example, but maybe they see the word uniform twice and then they think that uniform is the topical word, which is a possible, because then it is also a repeated word, because students will want to just follow the directions, like, I see a repeated word, teacher, I see it twice. But maybe the real topic is repeated more times. Or something that you can also do is you can go into the second and third and fourth paragraphs and see which word you see repeated more, because then that's the way that you can really justify that that's your topic. So that will happen sometimes where there's many repeated words, but only one of those repeated words is the topic. So you can check that by looking in the other paragraphs as well. When you're looking for the thesis, there are some helpful tips that you can give your students. These will not always be there. I try to teach my students that I'm giving them a toolbox, not a formula. So it's not always going to work, but there will be some tools that they can take out and try, and hopefully one of them will work. So you'll want to circle any signal words that you see. Again, there will not always be a signal word, but hopefully there is. That's very helpful if there is. But the thesis also must include the topic. And then you can also have something called a magic number. And then once you find, you obviously double underline it to know that that's the most important sentence. So what I mean by magic number I put the stars around school rules. So however is our transition. And then the author goes on to say, there are some school rules that can seem unusual. So school rules would be our magic number. Magic numbers are any number words like some, many, 1, 3, anything like that. And then any plural noun. So in that thesis, what I can tell is that each main idea now is going to be a school rule. So this is to set the students up to hopefully be able to find the main idea by themselves after they've figured out what the author's trying to teach. So then we know each paragraph is going to be a new school rule that is unusual. So they'll double underline the thesis, and then they'll go on to their main ideas. When they find the main idea, they will underline that, and the major details they will squiggly line. It looks like I crossed it out. I must have moved the picture down a little bit, but you will not be crossing it out, you'll be underlining it. And so that will help the students to understand which one is the umbrella, which one is the most important, and then the details that support it. Again, transition words can also help. Major details usually have words like for example, or for instance, or example transitions. So that will help as well with that. Just some extra advice. There is, if you look to the right where I have the arrows, there is a light bulb function where you can use to clarify what the thesis is while you're prepping or just in class. Sometimes you can pop it up and then ask who found the correct one. You can also look at the questions that they will ask you to help you to find the main ideas or major details, like look at the title, then find the topic. There might be some other questions in there that could help you to elicit from the students. Whenever I'm using or doing the reading part, I always use the eyes on teacher function. Again, it's like this closed book function in your top right on your teacher tablet. And that encourages them to annotate in their books. Then they're not annotating on the screen, because when they go to the next page for the questions, that screen will be gone. All their annotations will be gone. They will be only on the question page. So I always encourage them to annotate in their books. Obviously, I'm not just standing up there. I'm also walking around and making sure they're annotating the right things. And then, like I said kind of earlier, you can adjust the amount of teacher guidance throughout the term. Like I would say week 1 to 4, you're really heavy. I'm going through the chunk down pizza like every single time, trying to get them to help memorize. And then weeks 4 to 8, you can be a little bit more medium. Maybe you have them do, you find a topic and the thesis, and then you go over it instead of just topic and then thesis. You can give them more work to do independently. And then 9 to 12, I would say really light guidance. You might just say, okay, first paragraph, I'm not going to tell you what you need to find, but find everything you need. And then afterwards, you can run through the things they were supposed to find. Same thing with second paragraph. Be like, there's one main idea, there's 2 major details. Find them because I've taught you how to. Or you can just say to second paragraph, I'm not going to tell you how many major details there are. You try to figure it out. And then obviously answer justification afterwards. Always clarify and confirm what they're finding instead of just moving on. If there is time, which there isn't always, but you can show some media cards to illustrate parts of the reading as well, or maybe an interesting educational fun video afterwards as like a reward for all their hard work that they used during the reading. And then after the reading, you'll get to type in the actual things that you found and underline. So that would be the thesis statement, main idea, and details that you found. This is really, really helpful for teacher prep. I always use this when I'm prepping these levels. But check if your branch, if you're able to skip this page. At some branches, they skip it because you're already annotating that. So writing it again sometimes can be a bit redundant. But if your branch would like you to do that, definitely check and make sure, because repetitions can sometimes be good. So make sure that is something that you are able to skip or need to do. Okay. This is what my prep usually looks like. On the bottom part, that's what my prep looks like for high level, and on the left it's the low level. You can either take a screenshot of the teacher's portal, or you can have the PDF file of the book. Usually that's somewhere on the drive, hopefully, or maybe you have a book yourself you can take pictures of or annotate in. But this is usually what my prep looks like. I prep WH questions, I circle transitions, I take some notes on the side as well. So either way you want to prep, I think that's helpful, either taking a screenshot and drawing on it, or having the book, screenshot of the book and then drawing on it. I think that's really helpful. It's also really helpful if you teach this level again in the future, then you already have all your prep, and it makes your life easier. Then it moves on to the questions for reading. Possible question forms, they come in many different shapes and sizes. Sometimes it is just a question for them to type in. Other times it might be a multiple choice question. And then sometimes they may be putting things into boxes. Basically what you want to do for these is hopefully you've underlined some of the important information in these in the reading, because you're not going to be reading everything when you're doing the reading. You're just going to be asking WH questions, skimming, looking for answers, and then trying to get the students to answer exactly what you want. So you're listening and trying to guide them there. But there will be some sentences that you're not able to spend a lot of time on. So what you do in those cases, if they don't already know the answer, is you're going to emphasize having them look for keywords in the questions to help you locate and justify the answers. So if I looked at number 1, I might ask a student, what is the key word? And I try to train them that the beginning part, like where is those are just question words. Those are not really words you're going to find in the passage. So hopefully they would say Taj Mahal. And then I would ask them, okay, where in the passage did we see the word Taj Mahal? And then I would go through each of those times until we find the answer where. And then I would focus on what the WH question is. Where would be a place, when would be a time, and then what might be a definition or maybe just a detail question. And then we would go back to the reading, and then we would try to find it, and then we would type it in together. Again, you can get multiple students involved on this question. You can ask one question or one student what the keyword is. The next student can find and read where that is, and then the next student can figure out what the answer is, and then you can have one student type it in. Or maybe if you have a student that you're worried wasn't listening, you can say, like, why is that the answer? What paragraph did we find it in? So you can get multiple students involved to make sure no one's falling asleep and everyone's feeling like they're included. Yeah, extra advice again, you'll want to be encouraging them to use their annotations and locating them in their books as well, because when they're on the question page, they will not have the question page and their reading on their tablet. They'll want to be looking in their book. I would say no more than 1 minute per question in the beginning of the term. That's obviously pretty unrealistic. I would say maybe no more than 2 or 3 minutes, but as you get pretty good on it, 1 minute should hopefully be enough. Again, in the first couple weeks, if you can't get to every question, that's totally okay. Just make sure as you're building their confidence and helping them to learn that in the future they are answering every question, at least trying to, even if you can't justify all of them. It's good to just touch on every single one. Also cold call students to have them justify their answers as well. You never just want to be like, what's 1? A, correct, moving on. You want to know why. Get them to be able to be comfortable proving their answer and explaining things in English. Again, you can adjust the amount of teacher guidance throughout the term, giving them a lot of help in the beginning, and then towards the end, maybe having them do the entire page by themselves, and then afterwards justifying it with them. Yeah, and then splitting one question to multiple students, already said that. So yeah, that's reading. Then after the reading page, there is a discussion page. It's basically the whole reading again, but on the top it just says discuss. So that's basically just to expand the understanding of the relevance of the passage, and you're trying to make connections between the passage and real life experiences. So this is maybe where you can show a video, ask a question, or have them just answer a question, and then everyone can be able to have some time speaking. And you can also talk about like jobs or their future or future lives or things that they're interested in. And yeah, that's a good page to just be able to spend a little bit more time just solidifying the understanding and then giving them some time to speak if the reading was a little bit drier and they didn't get to like have any fun conversations. Again, this is a page that you'll want to check with your branch if you're supposed to do this or not, because sometimes you are able to have those conversations while doing the reading, so then doing it again is a bit redundant. So just check if you're able to skip those as well. All right, listening. So for listening, we have an acronym that we use pretty frequently here. The T is for transitions, A, abbreviate, S, symbols, and K, keywords. These are things that I would also be writing on the board just so that they can have it either written in their book as well, or just for them to reference as they're taking notes. I would also say that it's fun to have students come up there and write it as well. Students get, I think they feel like cool, or like they're taking responsibility of the class if they're able to like take the teacher's marker and write on the teacher's board. So maybe in future weeks you can be like, who can write what the T is? Who can write the A? Who can do all of them? So I'll go through them one by one. Transitions, you'll want to listen for things like today I'm going to talk about, or however, first, next, or furthermore, to get them to understand how to organize their notes. Like today, that would be the thesis. Okay, that's going to be the big thing that I write at the top. However, is probably going to be maybe an opinion. First is going to be the first reason, and then furthermore or next could be another reason, and then furthermore is probably another fourth reason. And then obviously, for example, and for instance, those example transitions, you'll want to write those underneath wherever the first reason or next reason was. And then abbreviate, it's impossible to write down every single word and spell it correctly also. So encourage students to abbreviate, like instead of science class, you might just do sci and then C. For symbols, if you're the teacher's asking a question, if someone sounds confused, a smiley face if they like something. If you want to say and, that could be plus, or if they want to say is the same as, equals, and then X for like can't or don't. And then keywords, you will want to be listening for keywords that are related to the topic. And then you'll be writing those as well, like what time things are at. And yeah, you'll just want to be listening for whatever keywords you hear, especially topical words repeated, then you know something important about the topic is going to be said. So that's how they take notes. You should be taking notes on your board as they are taking notes in their workbooks as well. Again, this is not a tablet thing. They should be opening their books and taking notes. And sometimes just to get them, to encourage them to take notes, not as like a punishment or anything, but I will sometimes say, if you're not taking notes, then I'm just going to play the listening over and over again. And it really works. Like they really don't want to listen to it more than once. So they all take notes. And I always tell them, like, it doesn't have to be beautiful, it doesn't have to be pretty, but you do need to write something. And then hopefully their notes get better as the term goes on. You can also tell them if they're low level, they can also write some things in Korean if that's going to help them answer the questions later, or just to remember things. I think that's okay. So heavy guidance in the beginning, definitely. You'll want to play and pause the audio. This is also something you can prep as well. Like maybe you want to play, the thesis is, and the topic are maybe from 0 seconds to 15 seconds. So you'll just want to play until then. I think it also makes things go a bit smoother as well if you're prepped with time. So then you can play and pause those things and then elicit from the students, ask what transitions they heard, ask what repeated words they heard. Did they hear any keywords? Also, you want to get students involved in the note-taking process also as you write the notes on the board. Like if maybe you heard something about a dancing class or something, and then you can ask a student, how can I abbreviate dancing class? That's too long. And then a student will say DC, and then you can write that on the board as well. So that again gets them to take some responsibility of the class, seeing their ideas on the board as well. Then flexible guidance, more proctoring, less pausing. So you'll be walking around, checking their notes, pausing a little bit less, and then still asking students to share, how did you write that in your notes, instead of like asking them and then writing it together. And then light guidance toward the end, probably almost no pausing if you think that that's possible. Really try to challenge your students, establish a clear routine and expectations. So work must if they're completing work independently, like they should know what they're doing. So you should tell them beforehand, obviously you're going to listen for these things, and then they should be able to take their notes on their own. And then again, always try to, if there's time towards the end of the term, make sure you're justifying that with them, still taking notes on the board with them and helping them. Even after they take all the notes by themselves, try to still have something up there. And you should also still have model notes prepped just in case. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult for the students, or if there's things that they missed, you can fill in those blanks for them as well. So this is what it looks like. For C1 low, you play selected parts of the audio that's already selected for you, and then you fill in the blanks. So again, that like first audio button is the entire discussion. So if you want to play all the way through and then play it in chunks, that's okay. Just for time's sake, what I usually do is I just play the prepped ones that they have for you, the smaller ones. So in the first part of the lecture, you're just going to fill in the discussion, which is going to be probably what the topic is and maybe the thesis. Sometimes it's a discussion, sometimes it's a lecture, sometimes it's conversation. So students will know how to take notes a little bit differently for those things as well. Lecture, obviously, it's just one person talking. If it's 2 people talking, they'll want to make a T-chart on their notes and then have the first person on the left side, second person on the right side. Again, they should be encouraged to still take notes in their workbook, even if they're taking notes on the tablet. If the students are really low level, you can feel free to read the sentences before so they know what to listen for. And then later functions or later weeks, you can use the function to close it, and so they can't see it, and then all they can see is just your notes on the board. Or you're just playing it all the way through and then prepping where you're pausing instead of using what the textbook uses. And then obviously cold call students to share their answers as well. For C1 mid, it is a little bit different. They have a few different pages that they have to go over. The scan is also for both of them as well. So the comprehend part, this is where they're writing on the topic and the thesis and signal words. So this is kind of like what their notes would look like if they're writing in their book. That's kind of just exactly the same thing that they're writing on the tablet. Again, for the take notes part, that's also really helpful for prep if you have that page on the textbook. And then they can fill in the blanks there. They know what to listen for. Again, there's more fill in the blanks. But what I would do is I would really try to get them to listen without any filling in the blanks. Maybe if they're really low level, that can be helpful in the beginning. But what I almost always do is just eyes on teacher function. And then I just take notes with them on the board and in their notebooks. And then they just use those for the scan page. So the comprehend page and the take notes page are not pages that my branch goes over typically. But again, if that's something that your branch really relies on or wants to go through, then recommend definitely asking your FM to see if you're able to skip that and just focus on notes, or if that's something that they want you to implement, or just if as a teacher that's your style and you want to use it, that's definitely okay. And yeah, they should be using their notes to answer the questions. And then you should be cold calling students to share their answers. And then how you can justify is just ask like, do you remember what they said, or where in your notes does it say that? Where did you look? And so for the scan page, it could be things like true or false, or it could be multiple choice, or it could be typing things in as well. So for your model notes, this is kind of what mine would look like. Instead of just using the textbook, you can use the answer function on the portal to help you prep, but you should also have your own model notes as well. I think it just helps you to understand how to teach it when you have your own notes. So this is what the textbook will give you, and then on the right, this is kind of how I would take my notes. Instead of saying some unusual rules, I would say some unrules, and then I'm starting to abbreviate things a lot. Then I have one for my first reason, then I have that arrow which shows where I'm starting to get the details about it. So then it kind of breaks it up into the same form that you see the reading, the thesis, the first reason, which would be the main idea, and then all the major details underneath that. Then there's a page called the Practice Primed Summary Writing. Again, depending on your branch, you may be required to teach this. This is a writing component of C1. It requires students to use their listening notes and to paraphrase and summarize the information. So the better their notes is, the better score they should get on this. Again, this is not something that every branch does, so make sure you check with your branch to see if this is something you're supposed to implement or not. All right, now we're going to move on to writing and speaking. Writing, this is usually just the general format that we follow. Obviously, they're going to be maybe lower level, so maybe a full essay day one is probably not possible. There's a few different things you can do, like on my extra advice side on the right, I said you could write an essay together on the first day just to set the expectation for what they need. You could also just focus 1 week on introduction writing, writing a hook, what is an opinion statement, and then their transition statement. And then as you go into further weeks, maybe next time you do writing, you can focus on paragraph writing. What does a reason look like? An example, a detail, and then conclusion. You could also focus on a week for that. It's a little bit shorter for conclusion, so you might not need that. But yeah, just try to build their skills brick by brick. Try not to expect so much from them on the first day. So this is something that they should hopefully be aiming for by the end of the term, but the beginning of the term, obviously it does not need to be all of this. So paragraph 1 is the introduction. They need a hook, which is just an interesting sentence about the topic. Then they need their opinion statement, which is the answer to the prompt, question, or statement. And then a transition statement. I have 2 reasons to support my opinion. Then first and second body paragraph. So body 1 and body 2, there should be a reason, and then they should also have transitions. They should be practicing using transitions. Like for example would be an example transition, but reason might be first or second or next, those kinds of transitions. So they'll give their first reason to support their opinion, then they will give an example, then they will give a detail. Details should be WH questions that are answered about the example. And then in their conclusion, they should be restating their opinion. In conclusion, I think blah, blah, blah. And then maybe a final or future statement or call to action about that topic. As the levels get higher, sometimes they ask for 3 reasons. So that'll be 3 body paragraphs. And yeah, you can also brainstorm ideas with them on the board before writing if they don't really understand or don't have any ideas themselves. And then you can also help them come up with interesting hooks as well. This is usually more of an independent writing time, but you should still obviously be walking around proctoring, make sure they're indenting. I can't tell you the amount of times I've told students to indent and they still don't do it. So yeah, be walking around and proctoring. And proctoring also isn't just to be like, make sure you're doing the right thing or trying to be like scary about it. I really see proctoring as like some students are shy and they're too shy to like raise their hand and ask you a question all the way from the back of the room. So I think proctoring is just a really good way to be like, hey, I'm your teacher and I'm close to you and I'm near. Do you have any questions? I care about what you're doing. So I think proctoring is super important. Try not to stay at the top of the room the entire time. All right, speaking, kind of similar with transitions and reasons and stuff, but this is a little bit quicker than writing. So what you should be doing is you should be teaching them how to do this first. So you'll tell the students again, just tell them not to worry about being creative because if they are trying to be too creative, then they're going to run out of time because they only have like a certain amount of time to do this on the achievement test. So teach them the format to be about 6 or 7 sentences. The first sentence should be their opinion. So the speaking is probably going to be, again, a question or prompt like, do you think it's better to live in a hot place or a cold place? Something like that. Depending on the level, it might be a little bit easier or a little bit more difficult than that. So the first sentence, they should answer the opinion for what they would want. My opinion, I think I'd rather live in a cold place. A transition, I have 2 reasons to support my opinion. Then they're moving into their first reason. To begin with, cold places are better for clothes or something. They can give their first reason and then a detail. This is because, or first, for example, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll do the same thing for their second reason. And then at the end, they will restate their opinion, close it all up. For these reasons, I think living in a cold place is better than a hot place. If they cannot come up with reasons, some categories to pick reasons from could be money, entertainment, education, health, or environment. So for example, is it better to live in the city or countryside? You could have them say, to begin with, cities have better education. This is because there are more academies, something like that. So you can write those on the board as well. The acronym is MIHI. And then you can write that on the board. And then if they can't think of a reason by themselves, they can just pick one of those pretty quickly. Because if they try to be creative, they're going to run out of time and that's going to be really sad. Tell them to pick the question that's the easiest to answer, even if they would rather live in a cold place. If a hot place, I don't know, has better food or something, I don't know. But just have them pick whatever's easier, even if it's not their opinion. They're really just trying to practice, can they prove something? And then you can also tell them it is okay to lie as long as it is still believable. Like maybe their grandma doesn't live in the countryside, but they can say, my grandma lives in the countryside and she has such good air or something like that. So it's okay to lie as long as it's believable. Again, that just gets them to think of reasons and examples a little bit quicker as well. All right, homework. So for our branch, we have workbook homework and iLearning. I'm pretty sure that's pretty standard, but just ask if there's anything else extra that they have or anything that they don't have. I know some branches don't have iLearning, but I think every branch should have a workbook. But again, just ask your FM, ask your head teacher or your team leads for exactly what's expected of the students. For the workbook, they are going to be, studying the vocabulary. From the week before. So if it is lesson 2 that you were teaching that day, the lesson for the vocabulary test will be lesson 1. It'll be the week before. The vocabulary is always review. So study for the vocabulary test, that should be their homework. They're also writing the vocab words 5 times out. Some students like to do this differently. Some students write the English word, Korean word, English word, Korean word. Some students just write the English words. So yeah, it's kind of basically up to them unless your branch has a specific thing they're expecting. Some parents also like to tweak it and have them do what they think will help the students study the best. So just be aware that some of the book homework might be a little bit different. There also might be students that are exempt from doing the workbook homework just because of parents or mommy power or whatever. So just be open to homework looking different for each student. If time permits, in the first 5 to 10 minutes, you can help your class by studying for the vocab test. What I usually do is I say the English word and then I have them repeat the Korean word back to me. If you can't read Korean, then you can just have them use it in a sentence, or you can say the synonym, or just, yeah, any way that you think is helpful to help them study. I think any bit of extra studying we can get for them, just to show them that we are committed to getting them good scores and we care about their learning. I think it's good to help them study if there's time. For iLearning, again, if your branch has it, it's a series of vocabulary, writing, reading, listening, and speaking exercises that are pretty similar to the stuff they see in class. You have access to all of their scores on the MERP. If you go to class management and then to portfolio, you'll have all your students' names and all their scores, and there'll be a drop-down menu for you to look at the different components that they're completing. There's also a page in their workbook to help them to brainstorm for their speaking, so you can show them that as well. And then if they have any questions about iLearning, they can always ask you if you have some knowledge about it, or if not, they can always talk to the desk staff or the Korean staff at your branch as well if they have any questions about it. Okay, that is everything. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't
No questions?
have any questions.
Okay, I'll give it like another minute.
Um,
Anyone any questions
I
about
have a question.
anything? Yes, question.
I know you said for the reading to start taking it back for like each section. Should
Yeah.
you go over the whole entire reading, like annotate the whole entire reading with the students from like the very first day, or should you only do like the first few paragraphs, or like how much should you do for the reading? Like,
That's a great question. I think it's probably impossible to get through the whole reading in the first week or the second week, even maybe. So I would say teach them just how to annotate, like how to find the topic, and then like maybe one main idea in major detail. So I would say probably just the first paragraph and the second paragraph. I think is pretty doable in the first day. But yeah, obviously they should be able to do the whole thing by the end. But yeah, bits and pieces at the beginning definitely is probably more realistic. So yeah, not the whole reading in the first week. I think if it's impossible, that's okay. Any other questions? All right, my email is on the first slide. I can go back to the first slide just in case you have any questions while you're teaching, or anything else that you need help with, even if it's not C1, C2, if it's like a debate question or a master's question or anything. If there's no one at your branch there to help you, you can always email me and ask any questions throughout the term. I'm going to send a survey for you guys to fill out in the chat. So go ahead and fill that out, and then once you fill it out, you're free to go. Thanks for your time, everybody. Hope you guys have a good day. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had this issue with the last Zoom call that we just got out of. The survey is asking you to request access first.
Oh, really?
Yes, it did that for the previous
I'm
one, and it's doing it for you as well.
Okay.
having the same issue.
Okay, then I wouldn't worry about it. We can send like a mass email out with the surveys for you guys to fill out for each of your training instructors then. So if that's happening, then you guys are just free to go.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
good one.
Have a good one.